We're in the beginning, and we're talking. At this point, we're going to introduce, after the Genesis and the Tower of Babel and Cain and Abel and Noah, we're going to introduce another character in the play of psychology as written by the ancient masters, and the name is Abram, A-B-R-A-M. Okay? Let's not, and what I'm asking you, in whatever way you can deal with this, try to eliminate this as a real person. Try to think of this as a potential of yourself. All of these names, all of these places are places that express possibilities of yourself, okay? You're going to be starting this off on page 9, which is Genesis 12. And if you'll look with me for just a moment, let me show you what the potential is here and why this is in each one of you. And each one of you has Abram within you, okay? There are two aspects of the word. Ab, which is father, okay, and Ram, which is spirit breath, okay? So then this is what we will be looking to develop. I mean, these words are not just put together for no reason. There is an entity here which describes an aspect of you which is Abram, that which is the father, which is the mind, that which is the spirit breath. So this is where evolution is going to take us, as we'll continue in that chart that I gave you, is to develop this aspect within yourself of that which is the father mind, the spirit breath, the divine aspect of your nature, okay? Now, the first thing that you're going to see here is, now, and remember, don't look at this as somebody else. Think of this as yourself. That's what's very, very important for you to understand. This is you. There is a part of you that has to evolve into a higher part, okay? And there's a first instruction that's given here that we've got to look at. The very first thing that you have to do if you're going to develop this Abram. Because what's going to happen here, and let me just give you a little preview of coming attractions. What's going to happen to this Abram is it's going to become Abraham. Okay? And the very, very important thing is it's going to take upon itself the letter H. Now, if you look in your dictionary, whatever dictionary you would choose to look at, if you look in a dictionary, you'll find that the letter H is defined as to aspirate. It is breath. It is spirit. And that will fulfill Abram, which would be seeking that which is divine spirit breath, by becoming Abraham. Becomes the spirit breath. In fact, it's very prominent in a lot of Hebrew expressions, l'chaim, you know, and that's the letter H, which means to aspirate. What you want to do if you go home and look in your dictionary, look up the letter H, and you'll see it means to aspirate, which means to give breath. So the movement that's going to come then is within you to raise yourself from the Abram, the potential of Father's spirit breath, to Abraham, to take upon yourself that which is spirit breath. And remember, all of this is inside of you, and all this is psychology. And you do this by adjusting the cyclic patterns and the cyclic rhythms of the brain through your meditation. That's all this is. It has nothing to do with religion. It has nothing to do with Bibles. It has nothing to do with spirituality. It has to do with changing the cyclic patterns of the brain. You go from 26 cycles in beta to 14 cycles in alpha to 8 cycles in theta to 4 cycles in delta. And as I've told you many times, if you're willing to meditate, delta is ready when you are. Okay. All right. Genesis chapter 12. And this is the first thing that you've got to do. Good to see you. This is the first thing that you've got to do if you're going to develop from Abram to Abraham. Genesis chapter 12. And if you look at verse 1, this is quote-unquote God talking to Abram. And what is his first instructions? Said to Abram, get out of your country, get away from your kindred, get out of your father's house unto a land that I will show you. In other words, the first thing that you've got to do is inside of yourself, pack it in. Get rid of your traditions, get rid of your connections, get rid of your nationalities, get rid of your allegiances, get rid of everything that is important to you that you've treasured all of your life as being absolutely the key to life. Oh, I'm an American. Oh, I'm a Christian. Oh, I'm this. I'm an Italian. I'm a German. I'm all of these things. I'm a Catholic. I'm a Baptist. And what's the first instruction that comes to Abram? Get Out! Because you're never going to make it as long as you're dwelling in the house of your kindred. You're never going to make it as long as you're dwelling in your father's house. You're never going to make it as long as you're dwelling in your traditions. You're going to get older, your hair's going to get grayer, you're going to walk a little slower, and one day you'll be in the box and they'll shove the newspapers in your mouth, give you half a suit, everybody will come and say how wonderful you are. You'll go to the cemetery, they'll all go back to your place and have ziti, and then we'll say, oh, this is great. And half of them will get stoned, and that's what life is all about. When you don't follow the instructions as to what you must do in order to accomplish, in order to find, you've got to get out of that which... Now, let me show you something here. When you talk about this, I can't come up here and tell you about Abraham and Abraham and all of this stuff on the basis of just what I think. I can't say to you this is all symbolic. How do I know it's symbolic? How do I know Abraham didn't live? How do I know Sarai didn't live? How do I know all this stuff didn't really happen? I've got to document this. I have no right to come in front of anybody, whether it be here, whether it be on television, and tell you a bunch of stuff unless I can document the fact that this is the truth. That's why I have a lot of trouble with a lot of stuff, whether it be New Age or Old Age, that people give me. There's no documentation. I really don't want to get involved in it. I'm not interested in somebody's opinion. You shouldn't be interested in my opinion. If I'm up here giving you opinions, then shame on me. Let's document the fact that this is not literal before we go any further. Okay, open your Bible that you have there to page 953. For the rest of you, go to the book of Galatians, all right? In this book of Galatians, the Apostle Paul is talking about the very story that we're discussing, and that's the story of Abram and Sarai, or Abram and Sarah. Look at verse 22. It is written that Abraham had two sons, the one by a bondmaid, the other by a free woman. But he who was born of the bondwoman was born after the flesh. He of the free woman was by promise. Look at verse 24. Which things are an allegory? Okay. There's your documentation. There's your proof. I can't give it to you any straighter than that. I didn't make it up. Galatians chapter 4, verse 24, the Apostle Paul says the story of Abraham, and Sarah is an allegory. And an allegory is a symbolic story of which the characters are invented to convey a deep spiritual truth. That's what an allegory is. And the Apostle Paul says this thing is an allegory. And he didn't just say this particular, he said which things are an allegory. How do you know it's an allegory? I mean, even one of the things that religion does not like people to use is common sense. Well, how do you use common sense? I mean, is a woman 100 years old going to have a baby? Hardly. I mean, that's ridiculous. But it's no more ridiculous than a snake offering somebody an apple, or a fish swallowing a guy and puking out an evangelist and all this kind of stuff. And it's not meant for you to believe this stuff. There are people in churches all over this state and all over the country sitting, listening to this stuff and believing it literally. Literally. And you know what? They do not believe literally that it's an allegory, and that's what the Apostle Paul says, and you see it right in the book. Which things are... I'm telling you, this is a myth. It's mythology. This isn't to be taken literally, but they ripped that page out. Nobody ever... and I'll bet you've gone to churches all your life, and I'll bet you there's not one pastor who's ever stood up in your church and said this is allegory. Never even referred to that page. They don't want you to know that. But it is. So then I've got authority to pursue this as an allegory. Why? Because the Bible says it's an allegory. Okay? And you agree to that? You saw it with your own eyes. Okay. So I didn't make it up, and I don't have to stand here and shake because I say this is all symbolic, because the Bible agrees with who? Me. Not bad. All right. Okay. Now, let's get to the point then. Abram, you got to move. And we realize that that's a part of you that's got to move if it's going to find this thing which is divine essence. Why do I have to move? That's the question. Why? Why is it necessary for you to give up everything that your father treasured, your mother treasured, your uncles and your aunts treasured, your nationality, your religion, your traditions? Why is it necessary? Okay, here's allegorically, here's the reference. Back to page 9 we go, and we look. I'm going to look at a little bit